They nurse and they care for our communities, oftentimes with very little recognition or even praise. In this week's show, we take a look at community healthcare workers. What level of recognition do they have, and why yet are they not absorbed into the Department of Health? Workers' World starts now.
From England to Poland, every step across the ocean, the ruling classes them is in a mess. Oh yes, the capitalist system a regress, but the Soviet system now progress. So which one of
Welcome to our weekly social justice show right here on Cape Town TV. I'm your host, Shirik Trubari. Once again, an absolute pleasure to host you here today, especially as we talk about the fact that for nearly 30 years, community healthcare workers have played a vital role in supporting the healthcare of most working class South Africans. However, their condition of employment are precarious and they often do not enjoy permanent employment for most labor benefits. Only 1 out of 9 provinces has recognized community healthcare workers as permanent public sector workers in the Department of Health, worthy of the salaries as well as employee benefits. In today's show, we relook the role of community healthcare workers in communities and the importance of the continued struggle to get them certainly employed and absorbed into the Department of Health. We have a panel of guests that will soon join us as we get into our conversation around how to particularly ensure that not only do they get absorbed, but all of the benefits that come with the role, that it is indeed realized. All right, so we have a panel of guests that's joining us for this discussion. Sibonile Jiza, the National Coordinator, Abnupsao, the National Union of Public Services and Allied Workers Union. We also have Nolubabalo Finapi, a community healthcare worker, particularly specializing in the field of TB care. And also we have Nobuntu Musengwana, a community healthcare worker with Nova. Thank you very much for having joined us. Sibonile, I want to start off with you from a union's perspective at the moment. What is the official status of community healthcare workers to the Department of Health?
No, thank you very much. And also, good day to your viewers and also listeners at home. Look, we are sitting with a very challenging situation. At the moment, I can tell you there is no progress or positive report because what you know, the resolutions which was in the form of a collective agreement entered by all parties that sit at the Bargaining Council for Social Development and Health is due to expire next day. In other words, we don't know what is going to happen, whether they are going to be approved. But I can say the status quo remains the same. There is no new development so far. So I can tell you, out of the 8 provinces is here in Gauteng that I can tell you that they have been permanently employed. Western Cape, it's a different story because they are not even, under the vessels. They are not even, regulated by this, resolution, which is a form of a collective agreement, which was passed by all parties to the bargaining councils,
Yeah.
So I can tell you so far, it's very dire, the situation. There are lots of challenges and nothing, And what we are getting from the minister is that there is no money to fund the project. They are only dependent on this conditional grant. And really, we know the austerity measures and et cetera, et cetera. Thank you.
What is the understanding by what qualifies as a community healthcare worker? I want to stay with you on this, Sibonile. Are they, persons with a medical background, or have they been nurses before, or are they just members of a community with an organizing skill that assists in bridging the gap between the type of service that you get in the public healthcare service at the moment and the level of services that community members can possibly receive? What qualifies one as a community healthcare worker?
Look, healthy care workers, I can tell you, it's a calling, because most of the healthcare workers that were recruited by department, it was during the time when we were fighting the scourge of the HIV/AIDS. and they were doing the primary health care services, you know. And the majority of them that we recruited, they have no matric, you know, and there is no educational status at the moment, you know. They have acquired experience, and because they've been doing this all out, you know, doing this outreach community projects, delivering of medication, bathing of the patient at home, bedding, and etc., etc. I can tell you for now, I think Gauteng is busy, you know, with the curriculum, and also we've just had a meeting with the Minister of Health. He told us there is actually a curriculum. I think it's going to be run by University of Stellenbosch. I'm not sure, one of the biggest university, where they are going to actually enroll all the CSW for the course, you know, in order not to capacitate them. But there is no formal education, as you know, that is an informal sector, by the way. Hence, we are fighting them to be translated as one of the public servants working within the Department of Health. Basically, I can tell you there are no skills, you know, it's only the experience and the auditing, the audit report in as far as their profile, you know, academic profiles are concerned. What we got from the minister, approximately 52%, we can say, proudly say they have matric, you know. The other remaining 38%, you know, we are going to look at maybe assisting them with prior learning programs and etc., etc., you know. Basically, there is no requirement.
Yeah, let me bring Lolo Bolalo into the discussion very quickly and try and understand whether community healthcare workers have one set of roles and responsibilities that they play, or does it differ from clinic to clinic, hospital to hospital? What exactly does a community healthcare worker ordinarily do, Lolo Bolalo?
Hi guys. I'm gonna start by saying this. My day starts at 6 o'clock. I wake up at 6 o'clock and I bath, and then after that, I take breakfast, and after that I go to the taxi to go to work. And at 8 o'clock, I'm at the facility, which is I work at Kuyasa Clinic. At 8 o'clock, I go to do the education, to educate the patient about everything, how they could help themselves and their children when they have diarrhea, all sorts. And then after that, I go to the TB room, where we go and we collect the patients. We go and recalls for looking for the patients, we do follow-ups, and then we go to do the home base, where we wash the patient who've got a car accident or bedridden, all sorts of that. And then at the clinic, they ask us sometimes that we must we weigh the kids, which is those who come for the injections or who come for their sick, you know, they ask us to do that. And they ask us to go for the awarenesses for the clinic, which is we must have, we collect our stats and then we give them their stats.
Okay.
So
Once we return from the break, I want to get Nobuntu into the discussion and begin to understand what role these healthcare workers play in the gap that we certainly see within the healthcare service at the moment. So we'll touch base on that front once we do return from the break. Do stay with us. It is Workers' World. Our conversation about community healthcare workers and their absorption into the Department of Health, which we now understand has seen very little movement, although there are some green shoots in that there's a consideration on training and having a basic standard of care as well as service that these community healthcare workers can begin to deliver on top of what they are already doing, of course. Nobuntu, thank you very much for your time. I want to understand, what the healthcare system would be like if these healthcare workers are not there. What are some of the most obvious things that we will begin to see break down if they are not present?
If the community health workers were not there, there will be a disaster because the nurses, they only stay in the clinic, in the facility. When the patient is coming, the patient is sick, and then the patient is diagnosed with TB or with positive HIV, and then the nurses cannot go out to check on the patient, how the patient is doing, because they don't have that time. They cannot go and do the records. They cannot go and do the follow-ups, go and check if the pregnant woman did go to the clinic, or check if the mother and the child, when the mother is delivered the child, how is the child, how's the progress of the mother and the child. They couldn't do that.
Yeah.
If we are not, the system would collapse, and then they couldn't go and look after the people who have bedridden, were very sick. The people can wash themselves. They don't have that time. We do go and do those things. We are the ones that are doing all those things. We check the patient has got the medication. We check the patient has got the right medication, because sometimes when the patients go to the clinic, remember, the patients goes there, sometimes doesn't know anything because she is sick, and then she can't remember when the doctor told the patient that you must take how many pills a day. So we're there to check the patient has got the medication right, the time that the patient has took the medication. Some of the patient can't even remember the time that they took the medication, because sometimes they don't have food, there's no food at home, all sorts. So we go there and check if the patients do the right thing, taking the medication at
Okay,
the right time.
I want to then, Nobuntu, just could you highlight and detail for us what are some of the safety risks associated with doing a job such as community healthcare workers? What is it that they're faced with on a regular basis?
Okay, some of the risks that we are facing, we're getting robbed, and they don't compensate for that robbing, because they said to us they are not quite sure if what we are saying is it true or false. Some of us are bitten by the dogs, and when you get injured at work, it's your baby. You stay in hospital, you can stay in hospital 3 months, sometimes not get paid, or you might lose the job. Some of us are get raped, because remember, this job is done by women, and they are pairing us into two pairs. We are working in a dangerous area. We go into the homes that we don't know what we're gonna meet there. Sometimes we meet with guys who are smoking nyaupe. They are fighting with us. They want to beat us. They taking our phone. Okay? Or during we get infected, because sometimes you go into the house where the patient got MDR-TB. You've been just told that patient has TB. No one told you that what you're gonna see on that house. You going as you are. Sometimes we don't have protective clothes, such as gloves, such as masks, such anything that is gonna protect me. What else? As you know that we working under econ 4 seasons of the year. When it's rain, we are outside, we're getting flu, we don't have medical aid. We have to go to stand on the long queues of the clinic like normal patient. When
Yeah.
it's like it's hot now, you must buy yourself a hat or an umbrella, moving up and down in the street of your community while the sun is 35 degrees. You must have your own bottle of water. We're working as far as 15 kilometers away from the clinic. You must walk by foot. Coming back at home, you are very tired, and you have to go back again.
Yeah, I want
Let
to
me
I want
stop.
to just then maybe compare that, Sibonile, with those Gauteng community healthcare workers that are now employed by the Gauteng Department of Health. Uh, what exactly do we understand by their employment? Is it that they are getting a stipend, Are they salaried? Do they have a place, station of work? Do they have all the equipment and the resources to fulfill the role that they are doing? Can you give us some sort of an indication about what is happening in Gauteng at the moment?
No, thanks very much. Look, in Gauteng, I can tell you the situation is little much improved because they do have a scope of practice as we speak. And also they are receiving, they are no longer receiving a stipend. They are receiving DPSA salary level 2. And the issue now that they were grappling with was an issue of the uniform, of which I'm told that, is going to be provided. And also more challengingly is the space where they perform their duties, because here in Gauteng we have lay councillors and also we have warboards. Warboards normally they are performing almost similar function that what Nobuntu. So yeah, it's similar. The only difference is that councillors remain, at the clinic or either maybe at the hospital. And you find that maybe there is a challenge, I would say between them maybe and nurses, because most of the time the managers are the nurses or supervisors. Let me say supervisors are the nurses, And there is that, element of sort of a I would say discrimination.
Yeah.
Because some of them, they are not actually regarding them as an as employees of the department in particular.
And
On the basis that
I want to dive deeper into that, is how do we onboard them with a full set of rights and obligations that, of course, affect any other worker in the Department of Health. We'll come back to that and more in just a break. Do stay with us. We are talking about community healthcare workers and their absorption into the work that, of course, they commit every single day and the healthcare that they provide as a bridging service to communities and, of course, the Department of Health and the challenges with getting them absorbed and some of their working conditions. Nolo Babalo, I just want to pick up on, what the impact has been of the demand to be employed by the Department of Health. Do community healthcare workers have an idea of the form and shape this employment will take?
No, don't have any idea how it's going to take, how long it's going to take for us to be absorbed for the department. What I know is that the department doesn't want to absorb us here in the Western Cape. They give us the runaround. They told us there's no money or sorts, so they can't absorb us. Whereas we are struggling to working in dire conditions. As my colleague was pointing out, that we do have challenges, that we are being robbed, and they don't take appreciation of us because we work a lot of time in the facility. But when time comes that they must appreciate us, they appreciate themselves, because when we collect the stats and everything, there was this time where we have the meeting. They told us that we don't work properly, and then there's no stats. Whereas we always produce the stats each and every week. We give the stats to them, but they say we don't have the stats, and there are a lot of default, which is not true. They are just running away for accountability, that they must absorb us. So Western Cape is very difficult. And then here in the Western Cape, some of our colleagues are so scared. When they do the picketing, they don't want to go to the picketing because they are afraid that they are going to be fired at work, because they usually threaten us when we go and do those pickets, because we're trying to be absorbed by the government. We're trying by all means to sit and talk with them, but they don't want to listen to us. They don't see us as their employees. They don't care about us. We are working for them, we're doing everything for them. As I'm working with CWD HIV care, but the work that we do, it's a lot of work. But the government of the Western Cape doesn't care about that, because when you go to those meetings, they say, we don't know you. They forget that we collect the patient from KDH, and with those patients, we look after those patients. But when time comes that they must give us appreciation, they don't. They don't. They say they don't know us, so they don't account to us. So this is the problem that we are facing. The absorption of us is very difficult. It's very because some of us are scared to go to the meetings and sorts. If we do go, some they are left behind saying we are going to work because we do have children, and we also
Yeah.
told them that we also have children. But to go to those meetings and go because we fight, we want the department to absorb us because we are doing the job a very good time. So
Okay, and
problem.
Ubuntu, the fact that, of course, we don't have the current absorption into the medical field, and more so as a recognized employee of the Department of Health, does that mean that there are certain benefits, or even protections, such as occupational health and safety, COIDA, etc., that have there been scenarios where some of those community healthcare workers that do get attacked or they do get injured in the workplace, has there been any scenarios where they may well be compensated for that?
I was one of
Nobuntu, please.
I was one of them was beaten by the.
Sorry,
by the- in the
I'm posing it to Nobuntu.
Okay.
According to COIDA, I never see any CAW that come in front that said, I've been compensated about with COIDA. It's just the word of mouth. Because I can say there was a case where when I was working for Ketimbilo, one of my colleagues did fell at work while we are on duty. Instead of what they're doing to her, they changed her for moving up and down in the street of Umpuleni. They said rather she must go to work in a facility where she's not going to move up and down. So when we asked her, did you get anything? She said no. So I will say that when we ask them about Ukoida, they will say yes, it did have Ukoida, but when it's time to apply that, it doesn't work.
Why?
So
Can I ask why?
whatever
Why do you say it
happens, it's
doesn't
all
work?
basis.
Of course, you say there hasn't been payment, but is it because, as I would understand it, that a medical examination would have to be done? The doctor then gives an overview, a clinical picture of what has happened and the injury that may have been suffered. And then the employee, of course, has to accept that, and a claim would have to be filed. Why have those things not happened? Nobuntu?
Can I respond on that?
Yes.
It's not happening. Like I said to you, when we are sick, we go to the clinic. We don't have any benefits because we don't have even medical what. Because we have to go. When we are sick, when CW is sick, she must go and stand on a queue in any hours like any normal patient. She have to wait in the waiting area like everybody. Like from today, I'm coming from the clinic. I was there at 6 o'clock. I just come now, and then I have to left my medication because I have to come to join the meeting. So we don't belong, as my colleague Not Babalo said, as CAWs, we don't belong anywhere. Because when we ask with your age about us, they will say they don't know us. When we ask our NGOs, they don't know us. We don't know where do we belong.
Yeah, I think that's a very relevant question, Sibonile, to then begin to wrap up our discussion here. There are clearly gaps in not just the recognition of these community healthcare workers, but also the rights and the protections that ought to be, granted for them. Sibonile?
Hello? Yeah, no, thanks. Look, in South Africa, we have good law. As you know that our laws protect all of us. As it says, we are all equal before the eyes of the law. and they are employees in the first place, whether they are indirect employees of the department or not, but at the end of the day, they are employees, which means they are entitled to the protections and the rights that are provided for by the South African laws. You know, it's just that there's never been a serious case of one of our members that was brought up by one of them to us, maybe to take it up, you know, maybe to test it through the bargaining council or CCMA or labor court, you know, in these instances. But what we know, they are protected, and also they tell us, and we do advise them accordingly, even in as far as their scope of practice is concerned. Because what becomes a challenge here is that most of these CSW, they are not performing their duties. You know, you find that maybe they get requested maybe by their supervisors, you know, to do job which has got absolutely nothing to do with their function, but for the respects and so on. As we advise them time and again, do what is within the law, what is within the scope, so that anything, if anything happened to you,
Sure.
we will able to come and protect you. Basically, there's never been a specific case that was eventually brought to us, maybe to take it up, by the way. But there were, we just hearing when we recruit, remember we are still recruiting, there are approximately 45,000 CSW across the country. No, in
Sure.
other provinces, for instance, we get these similar cases, and then we tell them, bring the evidence, but although it's difficult for them, you know, because they are far away, you understand? No one even
Esibonile,
to
I'm
prove
going to
their
have
case
to
sometimes
wrap it up
yeah.
there. I do apologize, but we have indeed run out of time, so we're going to certainly bring to a conclusion our discussion here on community healthcare workers and the gap that is yet to be reached in order to recognize them and accord them their rights as well as their full responsibilities. Thank you very much for having tuned in. We'll chat again next week. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.